They tell how polygamy constructed their household, but here in this courtroom, it may dismantle it. The Brown household, as soon as one beneath the identical roof, now confronts opposite sides of the aisle. Secrets on the file, tears on the witness stand, and love transformed into courtroom combat. And what began as a divorce proceeding is going to become the trial of the century. Pause beat. If you thought you've seen the sister wives drama before, you haven't seen this. Stick around until the end, because what's about to happen is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the Browns. CTA, comment below. Whose side would you be on if your family were on trial? The courtroom is chilly colder than it needs to be. Not from the air conditioning, but from the lack of sound. You can sense the history here. The late nights, the family meals, the kids racing down communal hallways, all lost. Now there's only tension. Kody Brown sits at the defendant's table, jaw clenched, eyes roving the room as if he's hunting for allegiance. His suit is too clean, as if he's attempting to wear authority rather than earn it. Seated in front of him are the women who used to share everything with him. There is Christine, serene but inscrutable. Janelle, stable but furious. Meri, distant, ghost-like. And Robyn, the favorite of the others, holding tissues, her eyes already red. The judge comes in. People rise. For one moment, they all seem to be together again, as in the past. But when they sit down, that's where the illusion ends. The case. It's not all about property, not all about money. It's about betrayal. About the accusation that Kody used communal family money, intended for all wives and children, to create a personal future with Robyn for himself. The room shifts as Christine's attorney rises. Your Honor, she starts, voice unshakable. This is not a divorce. This is an accounting. My client gave this man her heart, her house, and her years, and was promised by him that she was part of something eternal, only to discover she was paying for her replacement. Kody's jaw clenches. Robyn says something softly, but he doesn't answer. His hand only shakes a little, the only indication that the words hurt so badly. Sometimes, the greatest dangers are not waged with guns, but with memories. The tone of the narrator lightens, nearly introspective. It's odd the way love stories end, not in slam doors, but in legal documents. Every wife now sits amidst stacks of files, bank records, texts, even family photos designated as exhibits. Janelle gazes at one photo longer than she should, the Flagstaff house, before all of it fell apart. You can tell that she's not recalling just the house. She's recalling who they were then. Then it occurs. The first witness appears. Christine is led into the witness stand. Her footsteps ring like thunder within the courtroom. Kody refuses to look at her. The narrator leans in. The moment everything shifts. Christine affirms under oath, her voice unshakable. She doesn't appear shattered. She appears ready. Her attorney moves forward. Christine, when did you realize something was amiss with the family finances? Christine slowly exhales. When I realized the joint account was depleted, she explains. We all put in, even from our TLC profits. Then, every withdrawal began tracing back to Robyn's new LLC. When I questioned Kody, he said it was temporary, but temporary became 2 years. Gasps spread around the room. Robyn dabs at her eyes. Kody tightens his fists. The attorney continues. Did you ever consent to that transfer? Christine's eyes glaze over. No, I didn't even know the account was there until after he'd left. Each family secret has its shelf life, and today, they're all running out. The judge takes notes. Kody's lawyer objects, speculative, emotional testimony, but the judge dismisses him. This courtroom, it appears, is constructed on emotion. The narrator changes tone, from tranquility to intimate. We cut back briefly to the past. Christine and Kody in the kitchen, laughing, children running between them, Robyn's voice distant in another room. That heat now a distant planet. Back in the courtroom, Christine's voice breaks just barely. He used to tell us we were one family under God, but I guess some of us were under contract and the rest were under illusion. Kody's head comes up for the first time. He gazes at her. His eyes blaze, but with fear, not with rage. with a kind of fear that manifests only when truth catches up. The narrator slows the pace here, emotional tension building like a storm about to erupt. Christine descends, but her eyes do not leave his. Robyn whispers, "They don't understand." And Kody, almost inaudibly, replies, "Neither do you." When evidence becomes love, no one exits the courtroom unscathed. The judge orders recess. Newspaper reporters dash to the hallway. Camera flashes illuminate the scene. The wives emerge in opposite directions, each accompanied by her attorney, each in thought. Meri says nothing. She merely gazes at the antique family photograph that's been left face down on the table. Christine passes her by without a word. Janelle pauses, glances at Kody, then murmurs to herself, "You did this to yourself." As the courtroom begins to clear, the narrator's tone becomes softer, preparing for the next escalation. The first day of testimony was merely the tip of the iceberg. But what's coming up next will not only split the family, it'll threaten to reveal something much darker than money. For underneath the public image of the family is a secret, one that even TLC's cameras never captured. The courtroom resumes after a lunch recess, the atmosphere with tension as each chair appears to buzz with unspoken strain. Kody fidgets in his seat, tucking his tie back into place with a nervous habit, his expression otherwise stoic, at least outwardly, as if attempting to reassure himself he still holds sway over the room, the story, the family he has created and now stands to lose. The judge enters, and the silence falls like a heavy curtain with a sharp strike of the gavel.
Christine leans forward, staring intently at Kody, her fingers clutching tightly around her pads of legal paper, as though she's keeping herself from falling apart by sheer determination alone. Her testimony yesterday sent the room reeling, but what comes next threatens to dig even deeper into the festering wounds that have been festering in secret for decades.
Janelle's attorney stands, beckoning with the first piece of evidence, a folder so large it could keep secrets for decades. Within, notes of conversations, transfers, and emails between Kody and Robyn are carefully underlined. Every note, every text showing how the family finances were manipulated out of the other wife's knowledge. Kody looks at Robyn, who clutches her tissues in white-knuckled hands as if she might soak up the blow before it strikes. "Did you mean to deceive your wives regarding these transfers?" Janelle's attorney queries, her voice cold but contained. Kody swallows, his mouth opening and closing before he can frame words, but he holds back, knowing each syllable might be used against him. At times, one pause can convey more than a confession. The courtroom holds its collective breath, all leaning forward as though hypnotized by the magnetic charge. Meri squirms awkwardly, looking down at her shoes, muttering something to her attorney, a mere whisper of recognition for her own feelings of betrayal. Then the bombshell falls, a series of recorded discussions, previously believed to be private, played in the courtroom speakers, each wife hearing Kody's voice talking of monetary plans that benefited Robyn alone. His voice is even, almost nonchalant, the words slicing sharply. Robyn's eyes go wide, tears threatening to fall, and even Kody winces at his own recorded voice. Christine's jaw clenches, the flash of anger on her face more alive than anything she might have spoken. The narrator's voice melts for a moment, inviting spectators into private agony. Picture yourself in a room where all that you believed in, each shared moment, is made to testify against the person you loved most. Kody attempts to explain, but every interruption, every clarification of law, erodes his authority, and all of a sudden the courtroom is no longer a room of law. It's a theater for emotional nakedness. When betrayal has a number, even love is a falsehood. Janelle leans forward, eyes flashing with something akin to righteous anger as she speaks of her own losses. Nights lying awake wondering what became of her family's money, dreams delayed, promises unkept. The lawyer urges her to stick to facts, but her words have power beyond facts and ring quarterly in the ears of anyone who hears her. And finally, Robyn's own testimony, shaking but unrepentant, acknowledging her awareness of the transfers but asserting she had thought that Kody was doing what was best for the family. Her voice breaks as she tells how she had not meant to hurt anyone, but the room is aware of shared disappointment. 5 individuals who shared their lives, now fractured under the eye of the law. Every word spoken here feels like a shard of glass slicing through what remains of trust. The judge calls for a brief recess as murmurs fill the room, reporters scribbling frantically, camera flashes illuminating the stark expressions of heartbreak, anger, and anxiety. When proceedings resume, it's Meri's turn, usually quiet, now facing the mic with a poise that surprises everyone. She starts, her voice calm, with scenes of what she felt was favoritism, when Kody's focus changed in ways that were not simply emotional but financial and strategic, subtle as they were clear. Tension fills the room as she lays out her memories, each one a strand showing a tapestry of uneven love, and Kody sits stiff, looking at Meri then Robyn then Christine, each one weighing more than the last. The cross-examinations grow more heated, attorneys badgering information regarding the transfer of funds, residence, and future of the children, the inquiries infusing moral significance that no paperwork could convey. Emotions run high when a secret recording emerges. A voicemail left by Kody for a business partner insinuating plans to pool family funds in favor of Robyn, evoking instantaneous gasps and ragged whispers. Christine wipes her eyes, Janelle tightens her fists, and even Robyn can't conceal the shame dancing across her face. When the walls constructed to safeguard love come tumbling down, it is the secrets that are revealed first. The narrative pace slows as the courtroom takes a reflective pause. Cameras capture the subtle tremor in Kody's hand, the way Meri's shoulders stiffen, the slight quiver in Janelle's lip, and the audience is drawn into a nearly unbearable suspense. What will the judge make of this tangled web? And then there is the surprise. A hitherto unknown witness emerges, a family's longtime accountant, who produces emails that indicate Kody's behavior wasn't favoritism but outright hiding, a recurring pattern challenging fraud and trust. The women look at one another, mixed emotions of vindication, shock, and betrayal coloring each face with unmasked feelings. The accountant offers copious proof of misappropriated funds and covert deals, a few of which come with code names that take everyone's breath away, even veteran lawyers. Robyn whispers, "I didn't know," but the phrase rings hollow. The truth weighs more than words. Christine's eyes blaze with triumph and sadness as she sees Kody squirm on the witness stand, compelled to explain decisions he once took for granted. The courtroom is the battlefield upon which emotional and judicial warfare converge, with each piece of testimony fueling the drama and gradually peeling away at the family's tenuous cohesion. Amidst strife, even silence cries out louder than words. The drama comes to a head when the judge orders a sudden sidebar, voices hushed but tension ratcheted up. Cameras catch Kody leaning in, his complexion ashen, while the wives confer with their attorneys, exchanging brief, accusing glances filled with distrust and fear of what lies ahead. Then, in a still but seismic moment, the oldest children are invoked, their well-being now at risk, the motivation for the family to remain together all these years, and now suddenly the stakes are personal beyond money or pride. Kody's expression sets into stone, seeing that his legacy, his family, and the love he once depended upon are slipping away irretrievably. The testimony goes on well into the day, every piece of evidence and emotional outburst piling onto a story that's no longer about money or cronyism, but identity, loyalty, and the price of secrets. Every discovery here brings us closer to a verdict that will change lives forever. At the end of the session, the witnesses are drained, the wives are emotionally bare, and Kody sits slumped forward, staring at the table, speech failing where action has betrayed him. The last twist arrives in the guise of a handwritten letter, inserted into evidence at the 11th hour, suggesting an affair of the heart that no one saw coming, not with Robyn, not with the children's best interests, but with a clandestine advisor who assisted in engineering the financial maneuvers, someone that no one was thinking. Gasps fill the courtroom again, and the camera pans over the stunned faces, lingering on Christine's narrowed eyes, Meri's trembling lips, Janelle's stiff posture, and Robyn's quiet despair. The judge calls the day, banging the gavel, leaving a courtroom full of questions, betrayal, and unresolved tension. The voice of the narrator brings the episode to a close, inviting the audience to the next episode. The tale is not done yet. The secrets only grow deeper, and the stakes emotionally are going to rise higher than before. And just when you think it's safe to breathe, recall, in this household, truth has a way of cutting deepest. The courtroom opens on a dull, cloudy morning, the light slanting across tall windows like thin knives slicing across the strained faces within. Kody sits in his chair with a slight shiver in his fingers, attempting to convey calm, while the wives share sly looks that speak years of communal history and recent injury, and the air itself appears charged with expectation, as though walls waited in breathless anticipation, aware that today could deconstruct constructed. The session opens with the judge calling the parties to order, her voice firm but controlled, announcing that the preceding day's disclosures were only the tip of the iceberg and that today the underlying, more intimate conflicts would be exposed. Christine stands up first, her movements slow, the thud ringing out like a drumbeat of resolve, and she approaches the stand with eyes fixed on Kody, holding silent questions and recollections that she will not let go. Her attorney probes the discussion towards financial discrepancies uncovered the previous day, but Christine deftly directs the story towards personal effect, detailing silent dinners through the night when home tension was too much, laid by unfairness, and the gradual loss of faith that had started long ago before any bank statement or LLC was created. When history becomes testimony, even ordinary moments can feel like evidence. The camera pans across Janelle's face as she leans forward, her expression taut with anger and disbelief, and Meri's hands tighten in her lap, trembling slightly, while Robyn sits silently, her face pale, absorbing both accusation and expectation as though the courtroom itself is judging her loyalty and innocence. Kody's lawyer tries to steer the debate back toward technicalities and intent, but Christine's recitation of dialogue, intimate meetings, and emotional abandonment speaks louder than the law, raising an undertone of moral responsibility that no legal terminology can suppress. She recounts how she began to realize the extent of favoritism, how she confronted Kody in private, only to be treated to cliches and sidestepping, and how those were treated to cliches and sidestepping, and how those were per cliches and sidestepping, and how those were per technicality and how those were techniques. But the very basis of their mutual family. The tension builds as another piece of evidence comes forward. An envelope labeled confidential with emails between Robyn and Kody talking about property plans that would leave the other wives and Christine seriously disadvantaged, showing a deliberate strategy that is not only financial betrayal, but also emotional.
It doesn't matter how small the discovery, feels like the breaking of a lifetime of trust.
Robyn changes positions in her seat, speaking with a break in her voice as she describes her interpretation of the situation then, that Kody's actions were in the interest of everyone, although the documents indicated otherwise, creating a tiny crack between explanation and fact that the courtroom appears to suspend from, anticipating the other shoe falling. The judge leans forward, her face impassive, making clear that the session is going to blow up, and Janelle is summoned to testify, standing with a soft burn of determination in her eyes, reliving times when Kody's choices directly impacted her children's stability, her bank account, and her feelings of equity. She recounts closed-door talks where vows were made and broken, how Robyn's presence altered the dynamics of attention and resources, was built on partnership as equals. When fairness is challenged, any display of kindness can be reframed as manipulation. The emotional height increases when Meri takes the stand, her voice steady initially but strengthening with every sentence as she relays her own experiences of exclusion, sensations of invisibility, and instances when she felt compelled to compete for attention and safety within the familial setup. Her evidence has a subdued but scorching authority, the sort that causes the room to fall silent, compelling everyone to witness the cost in human terms of financial. Melts for a moment, inviting spectators into private agony. Picture yourself in a room where all that you believed in, each shared moment, is made to testify against the person you loved most. Kody attempts to explain, but every interruption, every clarification of law, erodes his authority, and all of a sudden the courtroom is no longer a room of law. It's a theater for emotional nakedness. When betrayal has a number, even love is a falsehood. Janelle leans forward, eyes flashing with something akin to righteous anger as she speaks of her own losses. Nights lying awake wondering what became of her family's money, dreams delayed, promises unkept. The lawyer urges her to stick to facts, but her words have power beyond facts and ring cordially in the ears of anyone who hears her. And finally, Robyn's own testimony, shaking but unrepentant, acknowledging her awareness of the transfers but asserting she had thought that Kody was doing what was best for the family. Her voice breaks as she tells how she had not meant to hurt anyone, but the room is aware of shared disappointment. 5 individuals who shared their lives, now fractured under the eye of the law. Every word spoken here feels like a shard of glass slicing through what remains of trust. The judge calls for a brief recess as murmurs fill the room, reporters scribbling frantically, camera flashes illuminating the stark expressions of heartbreak, anger, and anxiety. When proceedings resume, it's Meri's turn, usually quiet, now facing the mic with a poise that surprises everyone. She starts, her voice calm, with scenes of what she felt was favoritism, when Kody's focus changed in ways that were not simply emotional but financial and strategic, subtle as they were clear. Tension fills the room as she lays out her memories, each one a strand showing a tapestry of uneven love, and Kody sits stiff, looking at Meri then Robyn then Christine, each one weighing more than the last. The cross-examinations grow more heated, attorneys badgering information regarding the transfer of funds, residence, and future of the children, the inquiries infusing moral significance that no paperwork could convey. Emotions run high when a secret recording emerges. A voicemail left by Kody for a business partner insinuating plans to pool family funds in favor of Robyn, evoking instantaneous gasps and ragged whispers. Christine wipes her eyes, Janelle tightens her fists, and even Robyn can't conceal the shame dancing across her face. When the walls constructed to safeguard love come tumbling down, it is the secrets that are revealed first. The narrative pace slows as the courtroom takes a reflective pause. Cameras capture the subtle tremor in Kody's hand, the way Meri's shoulders stiffen, the slight quiver in Janelle's lip, and the audience is drawn into a nearly unbearable suspense. What will the judge make of this tangled web? And then there is the surprise. A hitherto unknown witness emerges, a family's longtime accountant, who produces emails that indicate Kody's behavior wasn't favoritism but outright hiding, a recurring pattern challenging fraud and trust. The women look at one another, mixed emotions of vindication, shock, and betrayal coloring each face with unmasked feelings. The accountant offers copious proof of misappropriated funds and covert deals, a few of which come with code names that take everyone's breath away, even veteran lawyers. Robyn whispers, "I didn't know," but the phrase rings hollow. The truth weighs more than words. Christine's eyes blaze with triumph and sadness as she sees Kody squirm on the witness stand, compelled to explain decisions he once took for granted. The courtroom is the battlefield upon which emotional and judicial warfare converge, with each piece of testimony fueling the drama and gradually peeling away at the family's tenuous cohesion. Amidst strife, even silence cries out louder than words. The drama comes to a head when the judge orders a sudden sidebar, voices hushed but tension ratcheted up. Cameras catch Kody leaning in, his complexion ashen, while the wives confer with their attorneys, exchanging brief, accusing glances filled with distrust and fear of what lies ahead. Then, in a still but seismic moment, the oldest children are invoked, their well-being now at risk, the motivation for the family to remain together all these years, and now suddenly the stakes are personal beyond money or pride. Kody's expression sets into stone, seeing that his legacy, his family, and the love he once depended upon are slipping away irretrievably. The testimony goes on well into the day, every piece of evidence and emotional outburst piling onto a story that's no longer about money or cronyism, but identity, loyalty, and the price of secrets. Every discovery here brings us closer to a verdict that will change lives forever. At the end of the session, the witnesses are drained, the wives are emotionally bare, and Kody sits slumped forward, staring at the table, speech failing where action has betrayed him. The last twist arrives in the guise of a handwritten letter, inserted into evidence at the 11th hour, suggesting an affair of the heart that no one saw coming, not with Robyn, not with the children's best interests, but with a clandestine advisor who assisted in engineering the financial maneuvers, someone that no one was thinking. Gasps fill the courtroom again, and the camera pans over the stunned faces, lingering on Christine's narrowed eyes, Meri's trembling lips, Janelle's stiff posture, and Robyn's quiet despair. The judge calls the day, banging the gavel, leaving a courtroom full of questions, betrayal, and unresolved tension. The voice of the narrator brings the episode to a close, inviting the audience to the next episode. The tale is not done yet. The secrets only grow deeper, and the stakes emotionally are going to rise higher than before. And just when you think it's safe to breathe, recall, in this household, truth has a way of cutting deepest. The courtroom opens on a dull, cloudy morning, the light slanting across tall windows like thin knives slicing across the strained faces within. Kody sits in his chair with a slight shiver in his fingers, attempting to convey calm, while the wives share sly looks that speak years of communal history and recent injury, and the air itself appears charged with expectation, as though walls waited in breathless anticipation, aware that today could deconstruct constructed. The session opens with the judge calling the parties to order, her voice firm but controlled, announcing that the preceding day's disclosures were only the tip of the iceberg and that today the underlying, more intimate conflicts would be exposed. Christine stands up first, her movements slow, the thud ringing out like a drumbeat of resolve, and she approaches the stand with eyes fixed on Kody, holding silent questions and recollections that she will not let go. Her attorney probes the discussion towards financial discrepancies uncovered the previous day, but Christine deftly directs the story towards personal effect, detailing silent dinners through the night when home tension was too much, laid by unfairness, and the gradual loss of faith that had started long ago before any bank statement or LLC was created. When history becomes testimony, even ordinary moments can feel like evidence. The camera pans across Janelle's face as she leans forward, her expression taut with anger and disbelief, and Meri's hands tighten in her lap, trembling slightly, while Robyn sits silently, her face pale, absorbing both accusation and expectation as though the courtroom itself is judging her loyalty and innocence. Kody's lawyer tries to steer the debate back toward technicalities and intent, but Christine's recitation of dialogue, intimate meetings, and emotional abandonment speaks louder than the law, raising an undertone of moral responsibility that no legal terminology can suppress. She recounts how she began to realize the extent of favoritism, how she confronted Kody in private, only to be treated to cliches and sidestepping, and how those were treated to cliches and sidestepping, and how those were per cliches and sidestepping, and how those were per technicality and how those were techniques. But the very basis of their mutual family. The tension builds as another piece of evidence comes forward. An envelope labeled confidential with emails between Robyn and Kody talking about property plans that would leave the other wives and Christine seriously disadvantaged, showing a deliberate strategy that is not only financial betrayal, but also emotional.
It doesn't matter how small the discovery, feels like the breaking of a lifetime of trust.
Robyn changes positions in her seat, speaking with a break in her voice as she describes her interpretation of the situation then, that Kody's actions were in the interest of everyone, although the documents indicated otherwise, creating a tiny crack between explanation and fact that the courtroom appears to suspend from, anticipating the other shoe falling. The judge leans forward, her face impassive, making clear that the session is going to blow up, and Janelle is summoned to testify, standing with a soft burn of determination in her eyes, reliving times when Kody's choices directly impacted her children's stability, her bank account, and her feelings of equity. She recounts closed-door talks where vows were made and broken, how Robyn's presence altered the dynamics of attention and resources, was built on partnership as equals. When fairness is challenged, any display of kindness can be reframed as manipulation. The emotional height increases when Meri takes the stand, her voice steady initially but strengthening with every sentence as she relays her own experiences of exclusion, sensations of invisibility, and instances when she felt compelled to compete for attention and safety within the familial setup. Her evidence has a subdued but scorching authority, the sort that causes the room to fall silent, compelling everyone to witness the cost in human terms of financial flexibility and emotional partiality. Kody listens, shoulders sagging unnoticeably, and even Robyn's aplomb starts to crumble as the mounting abuses and vivid instances create an image of deliberate neglect and partiality difficult to dispute. When truth is compounded with evidence, denial is a weak barricade. The pacing of the narrative changes as the court addresses the children's well-being, presenting social worker testimony that outlines the ways in which the children have responded to the internal conflicts within the family, describing patterns of worry, confusion, and conflicting loyalties. Despite the best efforts of the adults to keep their cool, the courtroom weighs heavily with the threat of unspoken consequences, and each look passed between pet of unspoken consequences and each look passed between past between past consequences, and each look passed between pet of unspoken consequences, and each look passed between pest between betlog. The courtroom weighs heavily with the threat of unspoken consequence, unspoken pain of years gone by. Kody's lawyer attempts one last time to posture as misunderstanding and miscommunication, but the emotional testimony has gained traction, and the evidence, both on paper and personal, presents a stark picture that is hard to deny. Emotions, when paired with facts, can be more effective than law alone. The drama builds when the surprise comes. A respected family counselor, hitherto thought to be impartial, brings testimony that says the opposite of what Kody has asserted, showing not just the money tactics that benefited Robyn, but also an insidious campaign of manipulation, dictating Kody's choices and undermining the other wives' ground. The news shocks everybody, and Robyn is finally confronted with the risk that she had been complicit if she had been complicit if the risk that she had been complicit if been complicit if she had been complicit if she had been complicit if family complicit if been complicit if she had been complicit in manipulation that shown like complicit in incompetence. Christine's eyes blaze with vindication, Meri gasps sharply, and Janelle clamps her jaw shut in outrage and incredulity. The judge breaks in momentarily, ordering the lawyers to stay on track, but the tension is still charged, the air actually humming with expectation of what is to follow. The subsequent set of questions probes Kody's personal motives, having him describe his reasons, his concept of justice, and if he actually believed the family would stay together with the present financial plans. He struggles, words getting away from him, and the emotional weight of his choices is exposed. Even the most resilient mask splits under persistent examination. As Kody struggles, the camera picks up brief micro-expressions, guilt, fear, defensiveness, as the wives each overlay their own projections, a mix of triumph, sorrow, and residual love for the man they once trusted. The story pauses for a thoughtful moment, inviting spectators into the personal anguish. Picture a household in which love, loyalty, and trust are weighed continually against proof and testimony, and where each utterance can mend or further break strands that were already fragile. The episode takes a darker turn still when a previously ignored envelope is opened, handwritten letters between Kody and Robyn, hinting at private conversations on exclusion of the other wives from some of the family properties and assets for the long term, raising issues not just of fairness but morality, trust, and intentions. Gasps ring out in the courtroom. The wives share glances of horror and determination, and Kody's calm erodes further, the burden of public scandal bearing down on him like a physical pressure. Where motives are challenged, innocence can serve as a weapon turned against itself. The emotional tension builds as Christine, Janelle, and Meri present their final arguments for the session, mixing legal rationale with unadorned personal testimony, underscoring the emotional harm done together with the financial discrepancies, and the judge listens carefully, sometimes taking notes, knowing that this case reaches far beyond figures and contracts. It is about the heart, the trust, and the future of a family once united, Robyn speaks last, her voice soft but firm, apologizing and admitting responsibility for the fight, though words are flavored with defensiveness and excuse, and the humanity of emotions caught in the binding of financial and relational power. The courtroom is charged, quiet except for a sudden rustle of papers and a suppressed breath, as all grapple with the size of disclosures, the depth of complaints, and the consequences for the children, the estate, and the family heritage. Even in quiet, the power of truth overwhelms any argument. The judge calls for a short recess, the gavel ringing out like a drum calling for pause but not for closure, and the camera catches the wives exiting the stand with faces etched in weariness, rage, and determination, while Kody sits, his eyes fixed on the table, in contemplative silence, coming to realize that the session has exposed more than he had expected, and that his decisions have implications far more profound than the possibilities of applications far more profound than the possibilities abilities of bases, but not the abilities of bases etched more profound than the possibilities abilities as abilities at best embellished more profound than the possibilities and the session have buzzed meaning that the session has expected. Beyond the courtroom, whispers of shock and rumors spread among reporters, friends, and relatives, but within, a sense of the cost is clear. Tears dried, hushed words shared, quiet promises of strength and defiance. As the session closes, the narrator's voice leads the viewers to the next stage of the drama, highlighting that the revelations to come will shake the very fabric of the family, compel reckoning long overdue, and reveal truths unseen by even cameras. And as this family is confronted with the repercussions of concealed decisions, each of us is left to ponder, when love and devotion are pitted against deceit, who will ride out the storm. The courtroom is reopened beneath a heavy, gray sky, the sun struggling through high windows, casting long shadows upon the wooden floor. Shadows that appear to echo the tension tightly wound among members of the Brown family seated on opposite sides. Kody sits in a silent unease, hands clenched tightly on the table, his eyes darting between the wives who formerly shared his lives and now look at him with a combination of hurt, betrayal, and betrayal, and diddle, and betrayal, and betrayal, and betrayal, and entirely, and betrayal, and did it as partners, betrayal, and dead of the combination of hurt, betrayal, and dead compressed into a thin line, her jaw tightening, indicating today's session will be one of reckoning far beyond money matters as the family prepares for the excavation of secrets that can shatter the ties they've held on for decades. The judge bangs the court to order, her voice slicing through the room with a commanding authority, indicating that this week's emotional testimony was just an introduction, and today the evidence will be personal, raw, and irrevocable. Kody's attorney rises first, attempting to establish a narrative of misunderstanding and miscommunication, framing previous actions as attempts to manage family assets responsibly, but the room reacts subtly. A sharp inhale from Janelle, a flicker of skepticism across Christine's eyes, and Meri's hands tightening into fists as though she is readying herself for the emotional blows she knows are coming. The day's first witness is a veteran family helper, a woman who has witnessed family life in private for decades, and her testimony will lay bare layers of tact and courtesy to expose the underlying manipulating, favoritism, and neglect of feelings that Kody has either ignored or engaged in. She recounts private family gatherings, the manner in which choices were channeled through Robyn, how certain wives' views were waved off or overlooked, and how the kids commonly experience the brunt of split attention, a hardship that has been overlooked publicly but seated in the background of family life. Even slight episodes become gigantic in size when history is rewritten by witnesses of that past. Kody adjusts in his chair as she enumerates instances of special treatment, times when he favored Robyn in arguments, and the ways in which he supposedly exploited family resources to her advantage disproportionate to her contribution, and the courtroom senses a slight shift, an almost palpable tensioning of the air as testimony of infidelity mounts. Christine leans forward, absorbing each word, her eyes glistening with restrained emotion, while Janelle's lip trembles with a mixture of anger and disbelief, and Meri's face remains a mask, though her jaw tightens with each revelation. Christine's lawyer moves to present a new batch of documents, every page numbered with care of transfers, dialogue, and emails that support the assistant's testimony, creating a damning picture of a husband whose actions seem ever more self-interested, and a wife whose power may have subtly but significantly informed those decisions. Facts coupled with witness testimony can turn rumors of suspicion into inescapable truth. Robyn shifts uneasily, mumbling under her breath, "I thought it was right. I thought I was helping," but the words are lost in the overall gravity of the courtroom, each sentence she speaks appearing to highlight complicity more than innocence, as every wife looks on silently in judgment and disbelief. The tension builds higher as the family accountant is recalled too. Give more background information, outlining a pattern of financial transactions previously unremarked upon that included payments to Robyn's business endeavors and unusual divvying of family resources that left the other wives in marginal roles. The accountant's tone is clinical, but the effect of her words is thunderous, exposing patterns of fiscal exclusion that are not explained by oversight. When strategy blurs with concealment, trust is collateral damage. Kody's face contracts, lips pursed, eyes flicking between the wives and the judge, as the weight of the accumulating evidence starts to bear down on him, imperiling both credibility and family bond. Abruptly, though, the session becomes even darker when the court brings in private letters that indicate emotional manipulation rather than fiscal errors. Letters from Kody written out of frustration, fear, and lust, some meant to be read only by Robyn, that demonstrate a pattern of preferential attachment and psychological tugging within the family. The letters are read out loud, the words echoing in the quiet courtroom, each syllable heavy with emotional pathos, and for the first time, the audience is able to view the vulnerability, regret, and accidental cruelty etched on Kody's faces. Words, once secret, can hurt louder than any bodily act. Christine's eyes sparkle with a combination of vindication and sadness, her voice trembling as she speaks of the betrayal embedded in every sentence, as Janelle sits back, stunned by the extent of the favoritism, and Meri sits stiff, struggling to keep her composure in the wake of years of emotional abandonment laid bare for the world. Robyn's shoulders sag a little, her hands shaking with the suppressed inner turmoil she is desperately trying to hide, the mixture of guilt and defensiveness releasing a tension that is palpable across the room. The judge stops, allowing the gravity of the letters to sink in before going on, indicating this as a turning point in the proceedings, a place where the personal, monetary, and emotional tiers converge in ways everybody cannot help but notice. In an emotional courtroom, silence can be as potent as evidence. The hearings become more heated as cross-examinations probe deeper into the psychological effects on the family, turning attention towards the children and the long-term effects of favoritism, emotional neglect, and public airing of private family conflicts. Social workers, therapists, and educational consultants testify to show anxiety, issues of trust, and the insidious yet profound manner in which the children have internalized The children have internalized famili beyond the courtroom door. Kody's defenses are met with courtesy but strong refutations by the lawyers, showing the difference between intention and effect and compelling him to realize that good intentions are not enough when actions repeatedly injure people he took vows to care for. Even the best of intentions fail where actions betray trust. The narrative slows momentarily, allowing the viewer to process the emotional stakes. A family that was once bound by love and shared commitment now stands divided, each person forced to navigate a landscape of pain, betrayal, and legal scrutiny, and the camera lingers on the subtle expressions. Christine's suppressed rage, Janelle's grief, Meri's quiet resilience, Meri's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, and Kody's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, and Kody's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, Cody's dawning understanding of the storm hest. As the session continues, a surprise witness is introduced, a former close friend of the family who provides they say polygamy built their family, but in this courtroom, it might destroy it. The Brown family, once united under one roof, now faces off across the aisle, secrets on the record, tears on the stand, and love turned into legal warfare. And what began as a hearing on a divorce is on the verge of becoming the trial of a lifetime. Pause beat. If you thought you'd seen the sister wives battle it out before, you haven't. Stay to the end, because what's coming will flip your entire perspective on the Browns on its head. CTA, comment below. Whose side would you be on if your family was on trial? The courtroom is cooler than it needs to be, not only from the air conditioning, but from the silence. You can sense the history in the air, the late nights, the family dinners, the children running through shared hallways, all lost. Now there's just tension. Kody Brown sits at the defense table, jaw clenched, eyes sweeping the room as if he's hunting for allegiance. His suit is too tight, as if he's attempting to put on authority rather than earn it. Opposite him are the women who used to share everything with him. Christine, placid but inscrutable. Janelle, stable but full of anger. Meri, distant, near ghost-like, and Robyn, the one the others referred to as the favorite, holding tissues, her eyes already red. The judge arrives, everyone rises.
For a moment, they all seem to be together again, just like before. But as soon as they sit down, that's over. The case. It's not just about property, not just about finances. It's about betrayal. About the accusation that Kody used shared family funds, meant for all wives and children, to build a private future with Robyn alone. The room shifts as Christine's lawyer stands.
Your Honor, she starts, her voice firm. This is not a divorce. This is accountability. My client gave her heart, her home, and her years to a man who said she was part of something that would last forever, only to discover she was paying for her replacement. Kody's jaw clenches. Robyn whispers something, and he doesn't react. His hand merely shakes with the slightest quiver, the only indication that the words have cut deep. Sometimes the worst fights are not fought with guns, but with memories. The tone of the narrator becomes softer, almost contemplative. It's odd that love stories finish, not with dramatic slamming doors, but with legal briefs. All the wives now sit encircled by stacks of evidence. Bank statements, text messages, even family portraits labeled as exhibits. Janelle gazes at one photograph longer than she should, the former home in Flagstaff, before everything fell apart. You can tell that she's not only recalling the house, she's recalling who they once were. And then it occurs, the first witness is summoned. Christine steps into the courtroom. Her footsteps ring out like thunder. Kody refuses to glance at her. The narrator leans forward. Things are about to change. Christine is sworn in, her voice firm. She does not appear to be broken. She appears to be prepared. Her lawyer inches forward. Christine, when did you first understand something was amiss with the family finances? Christine blows out slowly. When I saw the joint account was drained, she says, we all put in, even from our TLC profits. But then, every withdrawal began tracing back to Robyn's new LLC. When I confronted Kody, he said it was temporary. But temporary became 2 years. Gasps echo across the room. Robyn dabs tears from her face. Kody tightens his fists. The attorney continues, did you ever consent to that transfer? Christine's eyes flash. No. I didn't even know the account existed until after he'd moved out. All secrets held in a family have an expiration date, and today they're all expiring. The judge makes scribbles. Kody's lawyer objects, speculative, emotional testimony, but the judge waves him aside. This courtroom, it appears, is constructed on emotion. The narration changes tone, from quiet to close-up. We flash momentarily back in time, Christine and Kody in the kitchen, laughing, children running in between, Robyn's voice in the background in another room. That warmth now seems like a faraway planet. Again in the courtroom, Christine's voice breaks barely at all. He used to say we were one family under God, but I guess some of us were under contract, and the rest were under illusion. Kody's head comes up, first time he looks at her. His eyes are burning, not with rage, with terror. The sort of terror one sees only when truth catches up. The pacing slows here by the narrator, the emotional tension building like a storm about to break. Christine descends, but never takes her eyes off him. Robyn whispers, they don't understand. And Kody, his voice almost inaudible, says, neither do you. When evidence of love becomes evidence, no one walks out of the courtroom untainted. The judge demands recess. Photographers dash to the hallway. Cameras strobe. The wives emerge in opposite directions, each escorted by her lawyer, each lost in reflection. Meri does not speak. She simply glares at the old family photograph that's been left face down on the table. Christine passes her by wordlessly. Janelle pauses, glances at Kody, then mutters to herself, you did this to yourself. You did this to yourself. As the courtroom clears, the voice of the narrator becomes softer, paving the way for the next level of provocation. The testimony day one was only the beginning. But what's coming up next won't only split the family, it'll try to expose something much darker than cash. Because lying beneath the family's public persona is a secret one TLC's cameras never captured. The court returns after an anxious lunch break, the air filled with anticipation as if each chair hums unspoken tension. Kody fidgets in his chair, adjusting his tie anxiously, though his face is calm, at least outwardly, as if attempting to persuade himself that he still has the room, the story, the family he has created and now threatens to lose. The judge appears, and with a quick rap of the gavel, quiet falls like a dark curtain. Christine leans forward, eyes on Kody, hands wrapped tightly around her legal pads as if she's holding herself together with sheer force of will. Her words yesterday shook the room, but what is to come threatens to go even deeper into wounds that have been festered in secret for years. The attorney for Janelle stands, gesturing for the first of evidence, a folder so thick it can conceal secrets for decades. Within, closely documented records of phone calls, transfers, and emails between Robyn and Kody are carefully marked. Every note, every message showing how the family money was moved in secret from the others. Kody looks at Robyn, whose hands shake a little, clutching her tissues as if she might absorb the blow before it reaches her. "Did you mean to deceive your wives regarding these transfers?" Janelle's attorney interjects, her voice cold but controlled. Kody swallows hard, his mouth opening before he can shape words, but he closes it, remembering that every syllable could be held against him. At times, a moment of hesitation can convey more than a confession. The courtroom grows quiet, all of them cocked to one side as if they are magnetically attracted to the tension. Meri squirms in her seat, looks down at her feet, and mutters something to her attorney, a barely perceptible admission of guilt on her part. Then the first bomb falls, a chain of taped conversations, previously believed intimate, played over the courtroom speakers, each of the wives listening to Kody's voice planning finances for Robyn alone. His tone is relaxed, near forthcoming, the phrases slicing like a blade. Robyn's eyes well up, tears brimming, and even Kody winces at the sound of his own voice on tape. Christine's jaw clenches, the flash of anger on her face more intense than anything she might have said. The narrator's voice breaks in for an instant, inviting viewers into the private suffering. Picture being in a room where all you trusted, all you shared, is being made against the person you loved most. Kody attempts to expound, but every interruption, every clarification in terms of law, erodes his authority, and suddenly the courtroom is not merely a forum for law, it's a stage for revelation. When betrayal can be measured, even love is seen to be a lie. Janelle sits forward, her eyes flashing with something approximating righteous anger as she describes her own personal sacrifices. Sleepless nights wondering where her family's money had gone. Dreams deferred, promises unkept. The attorney nudges her to stay technical, but what she says speaks beyond the facts to chords of sympathy in anyone who hears. There follows Robyn's testimony, shaking but unyielding, acknowledging her awareness of the transfers but asserting that she thought Kody was doing what he thought was best for the family. Her voice shakes as she recounts how she never meant to hurt anyone, but the room is heavy with a shared sense of disappointment. 5 individuals whose lives had become so interwoven, now fractured before the eyes of the law. Every word spoken here feels like a shard of glass slicing through what remains of trust. The judge calls for a brief recess as murmurs fill the room, reporters scribbling frantically, camera flashes illuminating the stark expressions of heartbreak, anger, and anxiety. When proceedings resume, it's Meri's turn, usually quiet, now facing the mic with a poise that surprises everyone. She starts, her tone unflinching, describing instances where she felt favored, where attention from Kody veered in directions that weren't simply emotional but financial and tactical, subtle but irrefutable. The air becomes charged as she lays out her story, each recollection a strand unwinding a tapestry of uneven commitment, and Kody sits stiff, looking between Meri and Robyn and Christine, each gaze more weighted than the previous. The cross-examinations grow more heated, attorneys pinning down specifics of money transfers, living situations, and what to do about the children, the questions filled with moral significance that no piece of paper could obtain. The room becomes charged when a secret recording is produced, a voicemail from Kody to a business partner that suggests plans to merge family holdings in favor of Robyn, causing instant gasps and muted murmurs. Christine wipes her eyes, Janelle clenches her fists, and even Robyn can't hide the shame flickering across her face. When secrets are exposed, the walls built to protect love crumble first. The narrative pace slows as the courtroom takes a reflective pause, Cameras capture the subtle tremor in Kody's hand, the way Meri's shoulders stiffen, the slight quiver in Janelle's lip, and the audience is drawn into a nearly unbearable suspense. What will the judge make of this tangled web? And then the surprise, a hitherto unseen witness emerges, a family accountant of long standing, who produces emails to indicate Kody's behavior was not favoritism but outright covering up, a trend that conjures fraud and breach of trust. The women glance at each other, a combination of vindication, shock, and betrayal coloring each face with raw emotion. The accountant offers impenetrable proof of embezzled funds and secret transactions, some bearing code names that astonish everybody, even experienced lawyers. Robyn whispers, "I didn't know," but the words ring hollow. The truth weighs more than apology. Christine's eyes blaze with a mix of victory and grief as she sees Kody squirm under cross-examination, compelled to explain decisions he once assumed. The courtroom is a battlefield where emotional and legal warfare meet, each witness raising the drama but gradually dismantling the family's tenuous cohesion. Amidst conflict, even silence is louder than words. The tension boils over when the judge requests an unscheduled sidebar, hushing voices but increasing tension. Cameras record Kody leaning forward, his color drained, while wives cluster with their attorneys, trading swift glances brimming with accusation, suspicion, and fear of what lies ahead. Then, in a very still but earth-shattering moment, the oldest children are spoken of, their well-being now at stake, the reason the family remained together all these years, and now suddenly the personal stakes are more than money or ego. Kody's face sets in determination, coming to understand that his name, his family, and the love he once depended on is possibly slipping away irreparably. The trial testifies late in the day, each piece of evidence and tearful outcry layering onto a story that's no longer simply about money or favoritism, but about identity, loyalty, and the real cost of secrets. Each revelation here is one closer to a verdict that can alter lives forever. At the end of the session, witnesses are spent, the wives are emotionally drained, and Kody sits deflated, eyes staring at the table, words lacking where action has betrayed him. The last surprise is in the form of a note written in hand, slipped into evidence at the last moment, suggesting an affair of the heart nobody expected, not with Robyn, not with what was best for the children, but with a silent advisor who assisted in the manipulations of the finances, somebody nobody was thinking of. Gasps fill the courtroom again, and the camera pans over the stunned faces, lingering on Christine's narrowed eyes, Meri's trembling lips, Janelle's stiff posture, and Robyn's quiet despair. The judge calls the day, banging the gavel, leaving a courtroom full of questions, betrayal, and unresolved tension. The narrator's voice brings the session to a close, inviting viewers into the next installment. The story is not yet finished, the secrets only grow richer, and the emotional stakes are poised to escalate higher than ever. And just when you can breathe again, remember, in this family, the truth has a way of cutting the deepest. The courtroom opens on a dull, cloudy morning, the light slicing through tall windows like pale knives held across the taut faces inside. Kody sits in his chair with a slight tremble in his hands, attempting to exude calm, while the wives trade slight glances that contain decades of mutual experience and existing anger, and the air itself vibrates with tension, as though walls are suspended in breath, waiting for today to potentially unravel all that, 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 waiting for today to potentially It starts with the judge alerting the parties to order, her tone authoritative but restrained, indicating that yesterday's disclosures were merely the opening salvo and today the more intimate, inner contentions would be exposed. Christine stands up first, her pace slow, the echo sounding like a beat of determination, and she steps up to the stand with eyes fixed on Kody, speaking volumes of unspoken questions and memories she will not abandon. Her attorney tries to steer the discussion towards the financial misalignments uncovered the previous day, but Christine quickly turns the story towards the personal consequences, describing nights of eating in silence when n silence, 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 when n sub eating in silence, when n free. Walking on tiptoes around drawn invisible lines by favoritism, and the gradual loss of trust that had started long before there was a bank statement or an LLC in place. When history becomes testimony, even ordinary moments can feel like evidence. The camera pans across Janelle's face as she leans forward, her expression taut with anger and disbelief, and Meri's hands tighten in her lap, trembling slightly, while Robyn sits silently, her face pale, absorbing both accusation and expectation as though the courtroom itself is judging her loyalty and innocence. Kody's lawyer tries to steer the issue into technicalities and intent, but Christine's breakdown of dialogue, closed-door meetings, and emotional neglect speaks louder than the semantic boundaries of the law can cover, an undertone of moral responsibility that no legalese can obviate. She explains how she learned the extent of favoritism, how she called Kody out in private, only to be rebuffed with platitudes and deferrals, and how those serious and deferrals, and how those serious serious, and how those serious platitudes and deferrals, and how those serious locked with platitudes and deferrals, and how those serial negotiators, and how those serious electus literals, and how those serious hone of locked platitudes and deferrals, but the very nature of the common family they shared. The tension builds as fresh evidence is laid on the table. An envelope labeled confidential with emails between Kody and Robyn negotiating house plans that would put Christine and the other wives at a significant disadvantage, laying bare an intentional plan which feels like betrayal not only financially but emotionally. The slightest find can feel like the breakup of a lifetime of trust. Robyn shifts in her chair, her voice cracking a little as she lays out her interpretation then, that Kody did it for everyone, though the papers indicate otherwise, making a faint crack between explanation and reality that hangs in the courtroom, waiting for the other shoe to fall. The judge leans forward, her face impassive, warning that things are about to heat up, and Janelle is summoned to the stand, standing tall with the quiet flames burning in her eyes, detailing incidents where Kody's choices directly impacted her children's stability, her bank account, and her concept of fairness. She tells of intimate conversations where vows were made and forgotten, the way Robyn's addition altered the ratio of a 10 forgotten, the way Robyn's addition altered the ratio of a 10 forgotten, the way Robyn's addition altered the ratio of a 10 to 10, altered the ratio of a 10 to Oz were made of a 10 forgotten, the way Robyn's addition altered the ratio of a 10 intimate conversation, being left behind in a marriage that was meant to be an equal partnership. When fairness is in question, each act of generosity can be reinterpreted as manipulation. The emotional stakes escalate as Meri testifies, her voice steady at the beginning but building with each statement as she recounts her own experiences of marginalization, feelings of invisibility, and moments when she was forced to compete for recognition and security within the family dynamics. Her evidence has a still but incandescent weight, the sort that makes the room fall silent, compelling everyone to grapple with the human cost of fiscal manipulating and emotional favor. Kody sits listening, shoulders sagging infinitesimally, and even Robyn's poise starts to falter as the roll call of complaints and minute details creates a picture of deliberate neglect and favor that is difficult to argue with. When truth is combined with evidence, denial is a weak defense. The plot pace changes as the court addresses the children's best interests, bringing in social worker testimony that relates how the children have responded to the internal conflict of the family, describing patterns of anxiety, confusion, and split loyalties. While the grown-ups attempt to keep their cool, the courtroom seems laden with the unspoken repercussions, and each look shared between parent and child seems to resonate with the hidden child seems to resonate with the hidden child's. Kody's lawyer tries one last time to couch the acts as misunderstanding and miscommunication, but the emotionally charged testimony has taken hold, and the facts, documented and personal, paint a stark picture that cannot be denied. Emotions applied in conjunction with facts can be more potent than law. The tension builds as the unthinkable is discovered. A family advisor, long regarded as impartial, gives testimony that refutes Kody's assertions, exposing not only the economic maneuvers that benefited Robyn but also a covert campaign of persuasion, influencing Kody's choices and undercutting the positions of the other wives. The news shocks everybody, and for the first time, Robyn is compelled to consider the reality that she was 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 consider the reality that she was consider the reality that she was discoverability that she was this time. Robyn is compelled this time. Robyn is compelled. Christine's eyes blaze with vindication, Meri gasps harshly, and Janelle clenches her jaw in outrage and incredulity. The judge breaks in for a moment, asking lawyers to stay on track, but the tension hangs electric, the atmosphere nearly humming with expectation of what's coming. The following set of questions probes deeper into Kody's own motives, having him describe his reasons, how he envisioned fairness, and whether he really expected the family to stay together under the present financial plans. He stumbles, words escaping him, and the emotional weight of his actions is revealed. Even the toughest mask cracks under relentless pressure. As Kody wrestles, the camera catches transient micro-expressions, guilt, fear, defensiveness, and the wives each overlay their own readings, a mix of victory, sadness, and residual love for the man they once believed in. The story pauses for a contemplative beat, inviting the audience into the private agonies. Consider a family in which love, loyalty, and trust are constantly weighed against proof and testimony, and every uttered word may heal or further break relationships already tenuous. The session becomes even darker when an envelope that had been passed over is found, handwritten correspondence between Kody and Robyn, implying confidential talks about permanent exclusion of the other wives from some family possessions and decisions, which not only questions fairness but also morality, trust, and intent. Gulps ripple throughout the courtroom. The wives share glances that are a combination of horror and determination, and Kody's calm erodes further, the crushing weight of public scrutiny bearing down on him like a solid mass. When motives are questioned, innocence can turn into a sword turned against itself. The emotional tension builds as Christine, Janelle, and Meri present their final arguments for the session, intertwining legal rationale with unadorned personal storytelling, highlighting the emotional devastation caused along with the financial discrepancies, and the judge listens carefully, jotting down occasional notes, knowing that this case goes far beyond dollars and contracts. Knowing that this case goes far beyond dollars and contracts. It is a matter of the heart, trust, and future of a family that is heart, trust, and future of a family that is heart, trust, and future of a family that is trust. It is a matter of the heart, trust, and future of a family that is contracts, and future of a family that is trust, and future of a family. Robyn last, her tone small but firm, full of regret and admission of her participation in the battle, but infused with defensiveness and justification, highlighting the richness of human emotion when combined with money and interpersonal power. The courtroom is charged, still except for an occasional rustle of papers and a deep breath as all digest the enormity of disclosures, the extent of complaints, and the ramifications for the children, the estate, and the family name. Even in silence, truth carries more force than any case. The judge calls for a short recess, the gavel ringing with the sound of a drum calling for pause but not conclusion, and the camera pans out as the wives exit the stand with faces etched in weariness, rage, and silent resolve. Kody still seated, his eyes fixed on the table, his mind elsewhere, aware that the session has brought to light more than he had ever expected, and that the decisions he has made have repercussions far beyond legal repercussions, far beyond legal retroactives. Legal retroactives made have repercussions far beyond legal retrosound, repercussions far beyond legal retrosounds, far beyond legal repercussions, far beyond legal retrospected, and that the decision has brought to light more legal repercussions far beyond legal. Outside the courtroom, whispers of shock and conjecture spread among reporters, friends, and relatives, but within, the emotional impact is apparent. Tears dried, whispers shared, unspoken pledges of strength and defiance. As the meeting closes, the voice of the narrator takes the viewers towards the next level of the play, highlighting that the revelations to come would shake the very fabric of the family, compel accounts long belated, and reveal secrets even camera angles have yet to behold. And as this family reckons with the repercussions of secret decisions, each spectator is left to ponder. When love and devotion intersect with deception, who will ride out the hurricane? The courtroom is opened once more beneath a gray, oppressive sky, the sunlight struggling to pierce the high windows, casting long shadows across the smooth wooden floor. Shadows which appear to reflect the tightly coiled tension between the Brown family members seated on opposite sides. Kody sits with a still unease, hands laid tensely upon the table, his eyes darting between the wives who once shared his life as partner and now gaze back at him with a combinaise 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 shadows which a combinaise shadows with a combinaise once more beneath hands laid partis live partner and now gaze back at him with a combinaise fives hands laid tumban. While Christine's lips are pressed into a thin, tight line, her jaw clenched, indicating today's session will be a reckoning well beyond money matters, as the family prepares for the revelation of secrets that could shatter the bonds they have clung to for decades. The judge orders the court to attention, her voice slicing through the room with power, heralding that the emotional testimony of the earlier sessions was just a warm-up, and now, today, the evidence will be personal, raw, and irrevocable. Kody's attorney rises first, attempting to establish a narrative of misunderstanding and miscommunication, framing previous actions as attempts to manage family assets responsibly, but the room reacts subtly, a sharp inhale from Janelle, a flicker of skepticism across Christine's eyes, and Meri's hands tightening into fists as though she is readying herself for the emotional blows she knows are coming. The day's first witness is a longtime family helper, a person who has observed the family dynamics behind closed doors for years. And her testimony will strip away layers of politeness and decorum to show the subtle manipulations, favoritism, and emotional neglect which Kody has either ignored or contributed to. She recounts private family gatherings, how decisions flowed through Robyn, how some of the wives' input was brushed away or disregarded, and how the children tended to bear the brunt of split attention, inducing an imbalance of feelings that has never been noticed in the outside world but has rankled in the backrooms of family life. When history is revised by the witnesses to it, even minor affronts become gigantic. Kody leans forward in his seat as she lists instances of special treatment, times when he took Robyn's side in arguments, and the ways he supposedly utilized family resources to his advantage in ways that served her unfairly, and the courtroom detects a subtle change, an almost perceptible tightening of the atmosphere as the evidence for betrayal mounts. Christine leans forward, absorbing each word, her eyes glistening with restrained emotion, while Janelle's lip trembles with a mixture of anger and disbelief, and Meri's face remains a mask, though her jaw tightens with each revelation. Christine's attorney moves to enter a new batch of papers, pages neatly stamped, detailing transfers, chit-chats, and messages supporting the assistant's claims, a damning picture of a husband whose choices become more self-serving by the moment, a wife whose power may have shaped those choices in subtle but powerful ways. Evidence coupled with eyewitness accounts can turn rumor of suspicion into unshakable fact. Robyn shifts restlessly, muttering under her breath, "I thought it was right. I thought I was helping," but the sounds are drowned by the collective weight of the courtroom, each sentence she speaks having a way of underscoring complicity over innocence, as all the wives exchange unseen glances of judgment and disbelief. The pressure escalates as the family's accountant is recalled to give more background information, describing a string of financial transactions that went unnoticed until then, such as payments made to Robyn's business ventures and bizarre dispensations of family resources that relegated the other wives to oblivion. The voice of the accountant is restrained, but the power of what she says hits like a thunderclap, laying bare patterns of financial exclusion that are not easily dismissed as an oversight. When strategy turns to secrecy, trust is collateral damage. Kody's face sets, his lips thinning, eyes shooting between the wives and the judge, as the weight of the accumulating evidence starts to bear down on him, testing credibility and familial bond. And then, just when it seems like it couldn't get worse, the session gets even darker when the court brings in private letters that show emotional manipulation, not only financial blunders. Letters penned by Kody during his frustrated, fearful, and lustful moments, some meant for Robyn only, that outline preferential attachment and mental games played within the family. The words are spoken out loud, the syllables ringing out in the quiet courtroom, each one heavy with emotional impact, and finally, the audience gets a glimpse of the vulnerability, remorse, and accidental cruelty that has been recorded on Kody's faces. Words, being personal, can hurt more loudly than any physical action. Christine's eyes sparkle with a blend of vindication and heartache, her voice breaking up as she talks of the betrayal embedded in each line, and Janelle reclines, stunned by the detail of just how widespread the favoritism has been, and Meri sits stiff, struggling to keep calm at the disclosure of years of emotional abandonment in the public eye. Robyn's shoulders slouch slightly, a quiver in her hand betraying the inner tension she strives to hide, the mixture of guilt and defensiveness forming a tension that spreads across the room. The judge stops, allowing the significance of the letters to land before going on, indicating this discovery is a turning point in the case, a point at which the emotional, financial, and personal layers overlap in ways that cannot be denied. In a court of emotions, silence can speak as loudly as witness. The trial heats up as cross-examinations pry deeper into the psychological effects on the family, with the inquiry moving in the direction of the children and long-term effects of favoritism, emotional abandonment, and public airing of intimate family conflict. Social workers, therapists, and educational consultants testified to displaying anxiety, trust disturbances, and the insidious yet important ways in which the children have in ways in which the children have hobbies, in which the children have hobbies, in which the children hobbies, in which the children have ways, in which the children have ways, in which the children have these, the children have themselves, and the insidious yet important ways in which the children have us. Social workers, disturb consequences well beyond the walls of the courtroom. Kody's justifications are countered with civility but firm refusal by the lawyers, emphasizing the disparity between intention and effect, and compelling him to face the fact that pure intentions are not enough where actions repeatedly do harm to those he had vowed to protect. Even the best of intentions fail when actions are at variance with trust. The narrative slows momentarily, allowing the viewer to process the emotional stakes. A family that was once bound by love and shared commitment now stands divided, each person forced to navigate a landscape of pain, betrayal, and legal scrutiny, and the camera lingers on the subtle expressions. Christine's suppressed rage, Janelle's griefs, Meri's quiet resilience, Meri's quiet resilience, Meri's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, and Kody's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, and Kody's dawning understanding of the storm hymn, hymning of the storm hymn, and Kody's dawning understanding of the storm house. As the proceeding goes on, there comes a surprise witness, a longtime family friend who testifies against Kody's definition of loyalty and brings into evidence intimate discussions of psychological manipulation, unfair treatment, and long-term plans for exclusion, driving the courtroom into new territory where public and private lives intersect with explosive effect. Truth has a way of emerging when least anticipated, unwinding even tightly held stories. The courtroom is a crucible of feeling, with tensions mounting to the level that even the judge has to stop for a moment to collect himself, recognizing the human stakes at issue here are deep, complex, and highly entangled in trust, love, and family heritage. Kody, visibly upset, settles back in his chair, realizing that the next disclosures will determine not only legally but emotionally as well how things turn out, and that the wife's determination and strength are as powerful as any evidence offered. Christine concludes the day's closing statement with restrained but fervent passion, reaffirming the long-term damage, the violation of trust, and the demand for responsibility, her words resonating throughout the courtroom as Janelle and Meri provide succinct but biting commentary on the psychological and emotional damage of Kody's behavior. Robyn, at last, speaks gently, admitting faults while trying to express intention, but her words are shadowed by the burden of evidence and witness accumulated against her, capturing the nuance of human motivations and the anguish of the intersection of love, loyalty, and betrayal. When both love and loyalty are put to the test under examination, even apologies have the burden of consequence. The judge raps the gavel, announcing the conclusion of today's proceedings, leaving the room heavy with open-ended questions, lingering anger, and the feeling that the most explosive secrets are still to be revealed. As the family exits, The voiceover describes the tempest of feeling, concealment, and conflict that has occurred, whetting the audience's appetite for the promise that future sessions will test the family to the limit, break down concealed allegiances, and lay bare truths that will rock the very foundations of the Browns' existence irretrievably.
And just when it appears the worst is over for them, the next bombshell will serve as a reminder to everyone that in this family, no secret remains buried indefinitely.
The courtroom is charged as the fifth session starts, sunlight filtering dimly through the high windows, casting narrow shafts of light across smooth wood that seem to highlight every anxious twitch and every sidelong look. Kody sits stiffly, hands clasped tightly on the table, his eyes flicking between the wives who stood beside him as equals in life and now look at him with a combination of pain, anger, and unshakable determination. While Christine's face is a determination. While Christine's face is a narrow chumped, while Christine's face is a determination, while Christine's face is a demlade, while Christine's face is a deflate, anger and unshakable determination, while Christine's face is a high window, controlled rage of a woman who has lived through betrayal for years, and Janelle is leaning forward slightly, jaw clenched, eyes blazing with outrage at the injustices she has borne silently as Meri sits motionless, almost statuesque, her fingers clenching around her legal papers in calm determination, and Robyn sits her head bent, trapped by the weight of guilt, defensiveness, and fear as she feels the brewing storm that her participation, had 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 her participation, have Hunterling. Have Monterlin in the storm that her participation, have demators clenching around her throat, twinching around, fingers clenching. The court is called to order by the judge, her voice stern, indicating that today the family will face the most profound wounds, the emotional betrayals and secret manipulations that no earlier testimony fully revealed. The session starts by bringing new evidence. A string of letters and private communications between Kody and a financial advisor that demonstrate careful planning to isolate the other wives from important decisions about property and finances, weaving a web of exclusion covered with layers of secrecy. When manipulation is disguised as guidance, then trust is the first casualty. The room reacts instantly. Christine's eyes narrow as she absorbs the implications. Janelle bites her lip, her anger barely contained. Meri's hands tremble slightly as if holding herself back from speaking, and Robyn exhales shakily, realizing that her role in the schemes is now undeniable. Kody tries to say something, but the crushing burden of built-up evidence, testimony, and emotional confrontation renders him briefly speechless, a slight chink in the armor he has carried for decades. The attorneys then describe the patterns of financial favoritism, with bank accounts, company records, and testimony to create a full picture of deliberate exclusion and personal benefit, putting Kody in the position of having to defend not only his actions but the ethical basis of the family he says he loves. Even the most careful plan fails under persistent scrutiny. Christine steps into the witness stand again, her voice firm but edged with vulnerability as she describes the emotional cost to her and to her children. Nights spent questioning why she had been lied to, mornings where the lack of equity created a stark emptiness in the house, and the desperate hopelessness that results from seeing favoritism shown to one wife over others even after decades of common commitment. Janelle continues, her evidence just as charged with emotion, describing how the growing influence of Robyn gradually altered the dynamics of family life, creating tensions felt sharply by the children and herself, and which she could not stem. Meri is up next, her subdued but devastating story of a lifetime spent feeling relegated, invisible, and having to negotiate an intricate hierarchy within the household that she lived in, where and love will not insulate against consequence. As the session continues, the well-being of the children is brought up once more with therapists and social workers recounting behavioral changes, anxiety, and emotional distress caused by persistent conflict within the family, noting that the impact of favoritism, secrecy, and preferential treatment is not limited to immediate finances or choices but affects development, trust, and long-term relationship patterns. Kody's awareness of these compounded impacts is subtle yet apparent, shoulders squaring, jaw clenched, eyes dropping in recognition of the seriousness of his decisions. Christine presents a strong narrative of her emotional experience, calling out the compounded hurt of feeling neglected, promises broken, and long-term favoritism, while Janelle highlights the ripple impact on home tranquility and Meri highlights the continued fight for recognition and equity. Robyn tries to interrupt with explanations, but the combined weight of testimony and evidence makes her voice small, measured, and torn. The courtroom hears every word, sensitive to the fine line between intent, perception, and outcome. Even words intended to defend can say more than they hide. The session's climax is at hand as an unexpected piece of evidence presents itself. A secret series of letters showing that Kody and Robyn had talked about ways to strengthen power and suppress rebellion from the other wives, revealing not merely preferential treatment but active attempts at domination. A revelation that causes a ripple in the courtroom as every wife takes in the extent of planning and secrecy. Gasps, tightened fists, and subtle tremors punctuate the room as the emotional weight of the evidence settles, leaving Kody momentarily speechless and Robyn visibly shaken. Christine's expression shifts between sorrow and triumph. Janelle's shoulders stiffen with indignation, Meri's gaze hardens, and even the judge allows a pause for the gravity of the information to resonate. The pace of the narrative slows for a moment, inviting spectators into the inner struggle of a family dealing with betrayal, deception, and emotional abandonment, underscoring that each choice, no matter how minor, can radiate through existence and connections with results both short-term and enduring. Truth, when discovered, redefines reality in a manner which cannot be reversed. At the end of the session, closing arguments for the day revolve around accountability, emotional intensity, and the need for acknowledgement and closure, leaving the courtroom full of unresolved tension, the air heavy with expectation for what comes next, where unresolved secrets, emotional reckonings, and family confrontations will keep building toward a climax. Kody remains in contemplative silence, the weight of accumulated revelations bearing down, while Christine, Janelle, and Meri psych themselves up for the wars ahead, and Robyn bears the brunt of complicity, guilt, and doubt regarding the future of her family relationships. And as the gavel strikes, signaling recess, the viewers are left knowing that in this family, every secret, every choice, and every hidden truth has consequences, and the storm is far from over. The seventh session opens to an almost oppressive mood, the courtroom thick with tension, sunlight slashing through the tall windows in sharp slants that light up every worried movement, every minute twitch of expression on the faces of the people seated. Kody sits stiffly, jaw clenched, hands folded but quivering slightly, as if he knows today will see him under the closest scrutiny yet, while Christine leans forward, eyes narrowing and unblinking, 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 unblinked slice, forward, eyes narrowing and unblinking, simmering just below her controlled demeanor, and Janelle's fingers drum rhythmically against her legal pad, her eyes flashing with repressed indignation as Meri sits straight-backed, almost statuesque, though her lips press into a thin line, showing the quiet tension of one preparing herself for emotional upset, and Robyn casts down her eyes, her hands folded tightly, the blend of guilt, defensiveness, and fear showing in her pale face, knowing 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 in her pale face. Intensity. The judge rings in the courtroom with a deep, commanding voice, announcing that today will wrestle with the lowest levels of betrayal, favoritism, and manipulation of emotions, where every decision and every secret shall be balanced not just legally but ethically, and where the lives of every member of the family, most especially the children, will be starkly illuminated. The episode begins with a surprise testimonial witness, a previous family consultant whose close work with family home dynamics delivers testimony that leaves the room gasping. They share conversations and experiences revealing how Kody and Robyn worked together in ways that consistently pushed the other wives to the periphery, emphasizing favoritism, concealment, and emotional manipulation over years. When those who are closest show outsiders what they can't observe, the truth slices ruthlessly and mercilessly. Kody fidgets uncomfortably as the witness details private talks, deciding gatherings, and subtle exclusion, such as financial machinations, scheduling decisions, and special favors towards Robyn, painting a damning picture of imbalance and intentional marginalization. Christine listens intently, eyes flashing with a mixture of validation and simmering sorrow, while Janelle's fingers tighten around her notes. Meri's jaw sets with quiet but intense determination, and Robyn's pale hands tremble slightly as she realizes the magnitude of complicity and exposure she now faces. The attorneys present a series of documents and communications, such as emails, written letters, and text messages, each showing a repeated pattern of preferential treatment, clandestine planning, and intentional omission, driving Kody deeper into a defensive position where even the most thoughtful, prepared justifications fail against the heavy weight of proof. Even the most detail-oriented defenses collapse before massive reality. The emotional stakes are raised as Christine testifies, describing intimate conversations with Kody and moments of betrayal that go back years, describing how promises were broken, attention was diverted, and emotional support was withheld, leaving her and the children to survive an atmosphere of inequality and uncertainty. Her voice breaks on occasion, the courtroom drinking in the nakedness of her anguish, and even the judge is caught off goff 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 god. Even the judge is caught off goff goff godfear, and even the judge is caught off goff god. Even the judge is caught off goff goff. Janelle continues with her account, highlighting the psychological pressure on the children and herself, describing instances when favoritism and preferential treatment caused tension, resentment, and underlying emotional damage, all punctuated by examples of coordinated household and financial planning that put her in a disadvantageous position within the family. Meri's testimony is equally piercing, highlighting years of perceived invisibility, emotional neglect, and attempts to assert agency within a family dynamic increasingly dominated by Kody and Robyn's joint influence, creating an emotional crescendo that leaves Kody visibly tense, shoulders slumping slightly, eyes darting in acknowledgement of the relentless accumulation of evidence and testimony. Unseen patterns, once revealed, can shatter even the strongest facades. Robyn is summoned to testify, her voice hushed yet shaking, trying to define her role, plans, and concept of fairness, yet each sentence appears to highlight complicity. The contrast of her account with the cumulative evidence leaves the court thick with tension, a blend of incredulity, rage, and despair emanating from the other wives, whose faces express years of bottled frustration and disillusionment. The judge permits each testimony to ring true, recognizing that the emotional weight is as important as the legal consequences, and the audience is strongly immersed in the evolving drama, the stakes heightened by the tension of personal betrayal and legal responsibility. An unexpected turn is when a new envelope of confidential letters is introduced, unrevealed before, containing exchanges between Kody and Robyn that indicate careful planning to centralize power, sideline oppositional voices, and give preference to Robyn's business, leaving Christine, Janelle, and Meri gasping in shock, vindication, and fresh anger. Kody squirms in his chair, face blanching, as the sum total of revelation weighs heavily as the sum total of revelation weighs heavily 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 and Kody lays Janelle and revelation.
Within the family, the disclosure of concealed plots can turn suspicion into irrefutable fact.
The courtroom is charged with electricity as the attorneys present, with great precision, the threads of financial manipulations, emotional favoritism, and willful exclusion, compelling Kody to react, though his efforts to cast actions as protective or altruistic fail against the tangible evidence and multi-layered testimonies, leaving him clearly straining to keep an even keel. Christine provides a poignant account of the sleepless nights spent wondering where she stood within the family, the mornings spent trying to divide attention among the children, and the deep psychological effects of favoritism and exclusion on her emotional health and parenting role. Janelle speaks about the insidious but effective ways in which household dynamics were influenced by favoritism and produced resentment, tension, and emotional difficult, tension and emotional difficult, tension and emotional difficult, cult difficult, tension and emotional difficult, and tension and emotional difficult. Janelle speaks about the household dynamics were difficult household him and produced resentment and emotion embedded as lasting scars. Emotional repercussions tend to last longer than financial or legal ones. Meri underlines the subtle but relentless erosion of trust, love, and influence she suffered year in, year out, describing the everyday management of a family structure lopsided towards Robyn and the constant fight to have her agency in a system that was progressively becoming more centralized around Kody and Robyn. Robyn again speaks, trying to explain motives, show remorse, and define her view of what's fair, but her words are undermined by the evidence they've shown and the emotional testimonies of the other wives, providing a nuanced tableau of guilt, defense, and emotional accounting. The session reaches its climax with the new audio recordings, which pick up secretive conversations to disclose planning, coordination, and preferential decision-making in real time. The courtroom responds as a whole. Gasps, clenched fists, and soft tremors break across the room as each word drives home the truth of exclusion and favoritism that has been so painstakingly chronicled. When secretive actions are brought into the open, even motives cannot insulate from judgment. Kody is confronted repeatedly, urged to harmonize his intention with the undeniable effect of his choices, while Christine, Janelle, and Meri stand firm, their faces a blend of grief, vindication, and unyielding determination. Robyn sits in silence, shaken openly, her former composure beginning to crumble under the relentless interrogation and emotional burden. A last surprise appears when an unexpected witness, a previous family accountant, comes forth with previously unknown transactions and messages that continue to expose a conscious pattern of favoring resource investment in Robyn, escalating the story of calculated exclusion and creating suspense over moral and legal responsibility. The atmosphere is electric with incredulity. The suspense charged as each wife internally absorbs the wife internally absorbs the suspense charged as each wife internally absorbs the lifestyles. Piling evidence can change perception into indisputable reality. As the hearing approaches its end, the judge stops to give time for contemplation of the emotional, economic, and relational effects of the offered evidence, recognizing the intense stakes and the intense personal influence on each family member, most especially the children whose own lives and emotional health have been continually invoked. Christine, Janelle, and Meri deliver their final thoughts on the session, citing accountability, justice, and the requirement for acknowledgement of emotional damage as well as legal technicality, as Robyn tries a last-minute attempted statement of remorse and reflection, qualified by fear and defensiveness, although the aggregate impact of the day's revelations makes her words sound more like concession than justification. All actions have repercussions and all secrets have an associated price. The judge indicates a short recess, and the courtroom remains heavy with hanging tension, raw emotion, and expectation of the final session when ultimate reckonings, decisions, and resolutions will be revealed. Kody sits in stillness, absorbing the weight of evidence and testimony, and Christine, Janelle, and Meri gear up for what is next, and Robyn faces the hard reality of exposure, complicity, and consequence. The narrator's voice brings the session to a close with a suspenseful yet contemplative tone, assuring the reader that the next installment will set the family face to face with decisions, repercussions, and revelations that will decide not just legal fates but emotional closure, and that in a family whose trust has been broken, no secret is left unturned and no heart is left unbroken.
And as the gavel comes down, the audience sits on the edge of their seat, understanding that the last session will test every relationship, reveal every secret, and show the ultimate price of lying and favoritism in the Brown family.
The last session opens with an almost palpable tension in the courtroom, sunlight cutting through the tall windows like hard beams lighting the worried faces of all present. Kody slumps in his seat, eyes down, as if preparing for judgment, the burden of weeks of testimony, evidence, and emotional confrontation weighing heavily upon him, while Christine's face is set forward, eyes aglow with a combination of sorrow, vindication, and determination of sorrow, vindication, and determination, and determination of sorrow, vindication, and determination of sorrow, vindication, and determination of sorrow, determination of sorrow, win determination of sorrow, ultimate reckoning, and Janelle sits tense, hands folded, fingers tapping lightly against the legal folder, her face set hard with controlled rage, and Meri sits tense yet still, lips pressed thin, silently weighing each word and gesture, and Robyn drops her eyes, face pale, hands gripped tight, well aware that the culmination of evidence, witness testimony, and emotional truth will now determine her place within the family and the courtroom. The judge brings the court to order, her tone controlled but firm, indicating that today will face the widest emotional and moral cleavages of the family, where each choice, each secret, and each action will be balanced not merely legally but morally, and where the welfare of the children, loyalty to family, and individual responsibility are all at stake. The session starts with a reading of all previous evidence, a collection of financial documents, private correspondence, audio tapes, and witness statements, each item presented in strict chronological order to emphasize patterns of exclusion, favoritism, and emotional manipulation, compelling Kody to react to the full impact of cumulative revelations. When all details are brought out, even the most assiduously concealed truths cannot conceal. Christine is the first to testify, giving an impassioned and heart-rending account that weaves together economic disparities with the psychological strain of favoritism, relaying stories of broken promises, sleepless nights, and the insidious but incessant erasure of her voice and body within the family, weaving a dyad of suffering and strength that deeply resonates within the courtroom. Janelle then testifies, her account stressing the ripple effects on household harmony, children's emotional stability, and trust in the long run, identifying particular moments where Robyn's influence skewed the balance of authority and affection in directions that generated confusion, resentment, and emotional tension. Narrative is equally poignant, chronicling years of invisibility, subtle exclusion, and the emotional weight of navigating a family hierarchy that increasingly centered around Kody and Robyn, her voice calm but charged with intensity, as she recounts the cumulative impact on her sense of agency and self-worth. Long-standing emotional neglect, once voiced, reverberates with undeniable power. Robyn is then called to testify, her speech tentative but honest, seeking to express her view, intentions, and conviction that what she did was in the interest of family well-being, although the cumulative evidence and witness render each remark both defense and confession, highlighting the complexity of human motives and the painful overlap of love, loyalty, and deceit. The judge is attentive, at times jotting down notes, letting the emotional impact fill the room, reminding that this hearing is every bit as much about reconciliation and accountability as it is about judicial examination. There is a dramatic turn of events when a last-minute witness, a past longtime family counselor, comes forward with recently uncovered communications and knowledge that Kody and Robyn might have made joint decisions with the understanding that the power of the other wives would be restricted, allowing for a tangled web of deliberate exclusion, calculated decision-making, and emotional manipulation, taking the story to its emotional and emotional manipulation, taking the story to its emotional and emotional and emotional and taking the story to its emotional and taking the story to its emotional and emotional and emotional and even the most intimate relationships can contain hidden agendas. The court responds as one. Christine's eyes well with held victory and sadness. Janelle's hands shake with restrained fury, Meri stands stiff with resolve, and Robyn's poise breaks, ashen and speechless, as the entire depth of exposure is unveiled before her. Kody's jaw sets, fists clenched on the tabletop as he tries to balance intent and impact, knowing love, loyalty, and family unity have all been sacrificed by choices he once believed kind. The hearing moves on with each attorney giving closing arguments that interweave legal responsibility with moral responsibility, highlighting not just the financial errors but the emotional toll of favoritism, secrecy, and exclusion, encouraging the court to factor the human cost into the ledger of facts. Responsibility goes beyond law, it reaches every heart touched. Christine makes a last, impassioned plea for acknowledgement, justice, and validation of her experience. her own voice firm but bearing years of pent-up anger and pain, pointing out that emotional redress as important as legal redress, while Janelle underlines the importance of trust, equity, and justice for the children and the family as a whole. Meri speaks last of the wives, measured but striking words reminding the court that the gradual wearing away of authority, acknowledgement, and respect over years has real effects which mold relationships, trust, and emotional strength, leaving a lasting impression on every member of the family. Robyn has one last chance to speak, her own voice low but heartfelt, regret for what she has done, errors in judgment she has owned, trying to explain her sense of fairness, but the accrued weight of testimony and evidence makes her words both defensive and confessional at the same time, pointing to the fault line between intention and outcome. The pinnacle is reached when the judge collates the huge quantity of evidence, emotive testimony, and written conduct, recognizing the intricacy of the family's relational dynamics while stressing the importance of accountability, transparency, and emotional healing, and not only financial compensation. Even the most complicated circumstances require accountability and transparency. The story lingers for just an instant, giving audiences time to appreciate the full weight of the family's emotional arc, the betrayals, favoritism, recognition struggles, and constant quest for fairness and love, and the camera lingers over faint micro-expressions of sadness, remorse, determination, and hope, highlighting the very human stakes involved. As the hearing draws to a close, the judge sets out the steps toward resolution, such as fair money arrangements, recommendations for family counseling, and ways to restore trust, stressing that healing is a process that will extend well beyond the courtroom and involve constant effort, thought, and emotional investment from all of them. Christine, Janelle, and Meri share subtle looks, a blend of relief and guarded optimism crossing between them, as Robyn sits silently, internalizing the implications of revelation, accountability, and the need to rebuild trust. Kody stands silently, reflective, knowing that the decisions he's made have permanently altered his relationships, family structure, and public image. With each revelation comes an implication, and with each truth comes a redefining of what's next. The end is characterized by observations from all sides. Christine pointing out resilience and justice, Janelle calling for balance and accountability, Meri pointing to self-respect and acknowledgement, and Robyn owning up and hoping for reconciliation, each one reinforcing the emotional weight of the session and leaving the audience with a sense of closure versus continued tension. Kody's silent nod and hesitant forays into apology reinforce the difficult dance of love, remorse, and duty that has characterized the entire courtroom drama, as the judge winds up with a warning that families, as with societies, are tested by openness, accountability, and emotional truth, and that the way to healing, though difficult, lies in acknowledging truth and accepting consequence. And now, as the gavel drops, fans are left with a haunting question. If you were in this family, how would you handle betrayal, favoritism, and the hard path to forgiveness? Have your say in the comments. What would you have done in Kody's shoes? And how would you rebuild trust after decades of secrecy and emotional manipulation? The camera lingers on the family's faces one last time. Christine's steely resolve, Janelle's thoughtful intensity, Meri's composed strength, Robyn's reflective vulnerability, and Kody's contemplative remorse. Each expression a testament to the emotional journey, the lessons learned, and the challenges ahead, leaving viewers with the full weight of the Brown family's story, a narrative of love, betrayal, favoritism, resilience, and the unendingness and the unendingness and the unendingness and the unending resilience and the unendingness learned resilience and the unending viewers with the full weight of the Brown family story, a narrative of love, defines every household where loyalty and secrecy collide.